Hello again. I am your host, Amateur Overlord. I'm coming to you today with a topic that is both near and dear to my heart. Um, there were a variety of topics I could have chose today, and I chose this topic because every time I glanced over it, I physically didn't want to talk about it. And the fact that I felt that way, and with the other books and research I've been doing into the destruction of ego and facing fears, I recognize that because I felt that way, this is the topic that I had to have today. So the topic that we're gonna have today, and everyone's thinking, well, what's he gonna talk about? I'm going to talk about heightism. Now that's something you may not be familiar with, but if you are a person of small stature like myself, it's something that you deal with on a regular basis. Now it varies between the genders as to how it is implemented. If you are a petite lady, um, then your dealings with heightism will not be as significant. And again, that's relative to the individual, but generally society is okay with a small lady. However, if you are a small man, especially if you come from a cultural background where men are particularly large, like if I was a short Samoan, for instance, it would be probably even more difficult as the society is known for being quite large. And if you know anything about Samoans, I'll put it this way: The Rock is half Samoan. So there you go. So let me give you a description as to what heightism is. This is the Wikipedia definition, by the way. It says height discrimination, more commonly known as heightism, is a prejudice or discrimination against individuals based on height. In principle, it refers to discriminatory treatment against individuals whose height is not within the normal acceptable range of height in a population. Now it goes on, but I'm gonna stop right there because normal acceptable range. Like whenever people say to me, "Why are you so short?" I always say, it's just something I say. I say I'm the average height for people my size. Now that's a clever use of words, but it's also true. Um, there is no normal acceptable range of height within a population because of genetic diversity and just you know that. It goes on to say height discrimination is most common against shorter than average men and generally accepted and ignored. Constitutionally tall women have resorted to higher dosage of estrogen to reduce their height. So, that's very interesting. I didn't realize that was going to be there. Um, I am about Kevin Heights. Kevin Height. Kevin. I am Kevin Hart's height. So both myself and Kevin Hart are about the same height. I actually heard he might be Jamaican. Funny enough, it's kind of interesting. I'm of Afro-Caribbean descent, which is why I highlight that fact, or potential fact. Um, as I was just reading it, I thought it was interesting that they pointed out that tall women and short men experience the same types of problem with heightism. And I was very privileged to, I wouldn't say date, but I spent time with a lady who is, she's actually a model. And we hung out together, and she's got to be 6'2", 6'3", and very slender. And me being my stocky little 5'3" self, on a good day, people would stare at us. And she's from Jamaica, like born and raised. And I was talking to her, and it was just funny the way she described it. Like I said to her, like, does it bug you that I'm not a 6 foot hulking guy? And she said, I'll never forget. She goes, "You lick but you have chat." So it's a great compliment. I which if you're not familiar with the patois and the Creole or whatever you want to call it, it's basically saying, you know what, in spite of your size, you got character, you got personality. I'm liking your swag, so we could kick it. She's a lovely lady. We're still friends. Um, but yeah, as regards to the whole heightism thing, so one time I decided to write down, and this is at my current place of work. And this has always been the same for me throughout life because it's like I've always been of small stature. And I wrote down how often I hear a quip about my height or a joke about my height. And fortunately for me, I'm the kind of person who has a very strong sense of my personal identity. So I don't take on comments people make about me. In fact, if you catch me in the right mood, I'm quite sharp and quick-witted, and I will retort. I was on a job one night, and this gentleman who was probably about an inch or two taller than me must have came up to the group of guys we're working with. I've never met this guy before, do not know this man. And this is the thing about when you are of shorter stature, people will feel that they can say and do things to you that they wouldn't otherwise do to someone else. I've noticed. And he goes, oh, look at this. They're just getting smaller and smaller. And the comment was, it wasn't like a terrible thing, but then he like kind of rested his arm on my shoulder like I'm there as some kind of small support, like a human walking stick for him, whatever. So I shrugged him off, and then I looked at the guy and I saw that I saw that he had a great many missing teeth, and I, you know, I had a quote unquote cheeky rebuttal. I was like, well, at least my dentist doesn't use a hammer. And then his friends roared in laughter. Now, probably wasn't necessary for me to say something back of that nature, but I've always been of the opinion that you shouldn't pitch if you can't catch. And if you're gonna make personal comments about people, you should expect to hear some back at you. Now, unfortunately, he was not of like mind as regards my belief on the situation, and he flushed a bright red and looked like he was about to get very angry. So I changed the subject very quickly, and neither of us made a personal comment about each other again. But it just shows that can happen. And back to what I was saying, I actually wrote down one time, and in a week, I averaged 4 short jokes a night. These are from people. These are from coworkers. This is from managers. I average of 4 short jokes a night. So in an average work week of 5 days, 4 jokes a night. That's 20 short jokes a week. If I do overtime, that's another 4 jokes. So I could potentially be hearing 24 short jokes within the course of a week, every single week. And there are 52 weeks in a year. So if you think about it in those terms, it starts to add up. Now, the funny thing that I always notice that people like to say, if a person of smaller stature, especially a man, if they tend to be a little bit more assertive, there's that funny phrase that I actually do not believe is actually a thing. Oh, you got short man syndrome. There is no such thing. There is the reality that many people who are of smaller stature have to be more assertive because they are of that stature, and people do take advantage of it. Like, I've been shoved by women in the club out of the way at the bar because they felt that, like, oh, I could move him. And I'm just like, all right, okay, I'm not probably as tall as you, but that doesn't mean I'm not an actual man with man strength. Obviously, I don't need to prove that, but those are facts, you know? So I just sometimes it's just hilarious what people will do when they think that they can take advantage of you literally because of your stature. For me, it's meant that I've learned a great many ways to diffuse situations. I size people up very quickly, mentally and physically. And to be honest, sizing someone up mentally is more helpful than sizing them up physically, because some people are just big and they've never had their metal tested, so they're not necessarily strong. But sizing someone mentally knows what they're capable of doing to you, regardless of the situation, and that's I find more helpful. So I don't know, what's been your experience with Heightism? Wow, I didn't think I would have enough to say about this, but we're pushing the 10-minute mark almost. Are you a short person? What is your opinion on short?